It seems everybody everywhere is being asked for evidence, whether it be bank statements, whether it be proof of your disability, or whether it be how your health affects you at work and more. But giving too much evidence can actually be a bad thing and could potentially do you more harm than good. And if you're watching this and you're in the UK, right now in the UK, there are lots of changes when it comes to entitlements, benefits, tax, company structures, and so much more. So, if you want to know what I mean by giving too much evidence can actually be a bad thing, make sure you are subscribed and you hit notifications, and I'm going to get straight on into it. Now, giving too much evidence actually catches more people out than it does for those who are selective with what they say and what information they give people access to. And yes, I'm also going to be talking about bank statements and the bank statement sagas that are going on in the UK as well. So let's carry on. Most people think that if you have nothing to hide, then you should be an open book, that you should let any organisation, any government entity walk right through all of your data and absolutely everything about you. With the premise being, well, if you have got nothing to hide, why should it be a problem? And I've only got to look through my comments here on this channel to see that most people are giving away far more information, far more data about themselves than they are legally obliged to do so. And I'm seeing it backfire on those poor people again and again and again. So if that is you, you do need to sit and watch this video all the way through. Now, to be clear, this is not about doing anything shady. This is not about hiding information either. It's about what is fair, what is proportionate, and what is relevant to the intended use. And that distinction is very fine, but it matters an awful lot. And it can also be the lever that makes the system go against you and weigh you down instead of being there to support you. Now, when you give too much information, too much evidence, you give the rights to mass data gathering. And when that happens, patterns, behaviours, assumptions start to become a predictable type of procedure. But that's not real evidence. That's just what somebody may think based on their interpretation of what they can see in front of them. And if you weigh that alongside social judgment, let's just say somebody might have a certain prejudice about something, then their interpretation of that evidence can tell a whole different story to somebody that has no prejudices at all. Now, let's take the bank statements, for example. Everybody is being told that you're being asked for your bank statements to check that you are getting everything that you are entitled to. However, call me cynical, but if that were the case, why is it that you are then having a 1 hour long interrogation on what you spend your money on? That is not protecting you. That is not checking to see if you're eligible. That is definite lifestyle monitoring, and one could go as far to say as coercive control, threatening you with claim suspension or claim closure if you do not comply. And if you have been threatened with one of those, please make sure you watch this playlist here, where we see what happens when DWP in particular close claimants' claims incorrectly, and how tribunals are starting to overturn their decisions. Now, for bank statements, the data that is only meant to be given is data that is related to your income, your capital, and entitlement conditions. When you start providing information outside of that scope, it can be, and is, from what you're telling me, being misinterpreted, taken out of context, and is then being used to make decisions about you and how you say you go about your day, what your health is like, how your health impacts you, etc., etc. Every single transaction on your bank statement tells a story about what you're doing, how you do it, when you do it, where you do it, for how long you do it, and everything else in between. It's literally like having a virtual tracker. Now, once you give that data, decision makers are allowed to make inferences from the data that you provide. That then becomes evidence. The more irrelevant data you provide, the more room there is for assumptions, especially when systems are under pressure, people are ill qualified, ill experienced, or just don't know what decision to make. And once additional information has been collected, it's on file permanently. It doesn't disappear. It can be reused, reinterpreted, and recycled to support another assumption. This is how people end up answering questions that they have never been asked. I'm going to give you an example. If the police come to your door, you should never let them in unless they have a search warrant. But when most police come to the door, they will say, "Oh, can I come in a minute and have a word with you about something?" And most people will let them in unless you've got any type of legal training or legal experience. But for example, once they're in your house, then they have completely different rights to do different things. They are most likely to have a body camera on, and they will then be collecting data from everything that their camera can see and can hear. And that information is going to be stored on a file all about you. That's why clever people, people with legal experience, and the people that may have fallen on the other side of the law will know that if the police come to your door, the first thing you should say is, "Do you have a search warrant?" If they do not, then you should be making maybe arrangements with representation to go and see them down at the police station. Now, let's get back to the bank statements. Now, this is not about refusing reasonable requests because you do need to comply, but you need to comply lawfully, proportionately, and responsibly. And if you don't yet have it and you're struggling with the letters, you're struggling to know what you should be saying, then go and grab the data toolkit. It's got over 8 different letters in it, and it has got a 13-page fact sheet to help you out. Now, giving everything is not the same as giving what's required. And this is exactly why people stay inside Insiders membership, because they are learning as they go along all the different things that they can do to protect themselves whilst making sure that their full rights stay intact when these patterns keep coming up from the system. And knowing, of course, how to react proportionately and compliantly when these things arise. Now, there are some things you can do right now to make sure you know what is going on with your own data. Number 1, check the settings on your bank and see whether or not open data has been activated, and look to see who can access some of the data. They will be from third-party registers, or people that are registered, I should say, on third-party registers. Remind yourself of who you've been giving your data to, your information to, what bank statements you've been given, what information you've been given in letters, and have a look to see how many letters of reply you've had, particularly from organisations like the DWP, when you've made complaints. Now, know that when you do make a complaint against a government department, they do need to reply, and there is a timeline to do that in. And I'm going to give you an example here. Someone has been asked for their bank statements. They provide all of their bank statements for 3 years because they feel they've got absolutely nothing to hide. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. Then a decision maker sees something like regular spending, not regular income accumulation, just spending. And then they start to question what type of a lifestyle does this person have beyond that spending, to see how that spending is being funded. And often that comes from sources beyond what is listed on the bank statements. Now, you've all been asking me, why do I think they are asking for the bank statements? And this is what I honestly think. I know for a fact, and an employment tribunal judge has also stated, that your entitlement to universal credit starts from the time it is awarded. Bank statements do not change that entitlement. What could do maybe something like a change of circumstances. However, an entity or an organisation should not be drawing or making an assumption about a change of circumstance that you have not declared based on something that is completely irrelevant and unaligned, i.e. your bank statements. Because in one sense, as I stated, with one type of mindset, they could be interpreted as being one thing, but another person with a different mindset or a different prejudice or social belief may indeed think something else. And with the use of AI, particularly in these government organisations and other systems and decision maker offices, you don't always have, and quite often do not have, a real person making these decisions. Something else I often get asked about is one-off transactions, but one-off transactions quite often are never recorded as one-offs. They become part of patterns, and patterns are then used to stipulate what you do and how you do it. Quite often people talk about one-off transactions as not being income, as not really being, anything considerable or repetitive. Maybe it was a gift, maybe it was a little bit of a handout or a loan, maybe it was a refund or help from family. But once they appear on a statement and once a certain system has hold of that, that is when information creep starts to come in. And if you don't know what information creep is when you overshare or you over volunteer information, or you give too much access to your data in response to a question, but all of the data that you have provided is not really relevant to the question that has been asked. And then instead that data starts to be used for other purposes that you never even agreed to, and other questions that you haven't actually been asked. This is why in courts of law and tribunals, what you put in the bundles for evidence is so important, because they also form the basis of an argument, but if executed correctly, they also form a very good basis of defense. And the right information in the wrong hands can be misused in a number of different ways with a very sharp mindset. So just remember that. Stop oversharing your information, stop giving away all of your data, and start questioning more. Is this fair? Is this proportionate? And is this relative to the term or the question that is currently being asked? And if the direct response is no, then you shouldn't be giving that data or that information, because it will turn around and bite you in the arse as evidence that you did not mean, or you will maybe perhaps regret in giving. Now, I know lots of people give information and give too much evidence because they feel scared, because they're scared of being accused of something. They're scared of being told they're covering something up. They're scared, just basically scared. But you just have to know a little bit your rights, and you have to realise that there is nothing wrong with questioning reasonably and politely the reason or the basis for that information. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and it's actually legally allowed for every single person in the UK and beyond, because it's your data, it's your evidence. Anyway, I will leave you with that one for today, and don't forget, if you have any questions, leave them down below.